Hi, my name is Ashley Hughes, and my YouTube channel is all about learning about being a mom and a wife. I'm 22, I have an almost 3-month-old baby, and I've been married for a year and a half. So, today I'm talking about how to become a Proverbs 31 woman. We're going to go through each verse and read it. I'll summarize it in my own words, and then we'll talk a little bit about it and answer some questions. So, in Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31, we read about this woman that is like the perfect woman. It's really hard to even imagine being anything like her. She's so perfect. But we're going to break it down. In verse 10, it says, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." I love that because it reminds me that our worth doesn't come from who we are. It doesn't come from our actions. It doesn't come from the way that we look. It doesn't come from who we marry or who we're around or if we have friends or not. Our worth is always the same. Our worth is always so big and so high and so great. Our worth is based in Christ and in God because they love us. They care about us. But even though our worth doesn't change, we can bring greater value into the world. We can bring value by serving people, by making food, by mending clothes, by keeping a house, by following the commandments. We can bring greater value into the world, even though our worth never changes. So, what can you do to bring greater value into the world? Verse 11 states, "The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil." I love that this woman described in Proverbs 31 is dependable. She's timely, she's consistent, she's somebody that her husband can really count on. Our husbands do a lot. They do so much. And they provide for us, they care for us, they love us, they help us bring children into the world, all kinds of things. So it's our job to support them and to love them as much as we possibly can and to be as consistent and dependable as possible. So, like this Proverbs 31 woman, how can you be more dependable? In verse 12, Proverbs 31, verse 12, it says, "She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life." So, sometimes we can get really mad at our husbands. That's really easy to do. Sometimes we can belittle our husbands. Sometimes we can condemn them for things that they do. Sometimes we can just be mean, and that's not good. Sometimes we put too much pressure on them. Sometimes we can, I don't know, all kinds of things. So it's really important for us to be nice to our husbands and to support them, like I said before. So, what can we do to respect and build up our husband's confidence? In verse 13, it says, "She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands." I think it's really cool that this woman works hard. When we work hard building our home and supporting our husbands, and sometimes we bring income into the home as well, that we can do a lot. Like, women have this amazing ability to just do so many things. We can multitask, we can have such varied talents, such varied abilities that it's just so cool. So my question for you is, what work needs to be done in your home right now, and how can you do it? In verse 14, it says, "She is like the merchant's ships. She bringeth her food from afar." Now, we may not go and search out food from Asia, from all kinds of places, but it is our job to make sure we are feeding our families the best food we possibly can. Now, it's important to me that I learn how to grow a garden. That's really cool, but that may not be your thing. Maybe you have a black thumb, and that's fine. But if you learn how to feed your family good food, it's a balanced diet, and you source your food as responsibly as possible, that is something that is part of a Proverbs 31 woman. So, what kind of food does your family need today? In verse 15, it says, "She riseth also while it is yet night, and bringeth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens." I think it's really nice that this scripture teaches us to prepare for each day. Whether you wake up while the sun is still down, or you wake up before your kids do, or you prepare some things before you go to bed, I don't think it really matters. But it's really, really important that you prepare yourself for the day. I think spending some time with the Lord in the morning is really important. I think taking some time for yourself in the morning or the evening, whichever works better for you, is really important. Taking some time for your relationship with your husband is also crucial. So write a list of the things that are important for you to prepare for the next day, whether that's setting out things for breakfast, or your clothes, or cleaning things up a little bit. Like, just prepare. So what can you do to prepare for the next day? Verse 16 states, "She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard." I like this one for two reasons. One, she's gardening, and I like gardening. I don't have a garden right now. I live in a tiny apartment, but I'm super excited to move into a home and to create a garden and to learn that process. But also, she has a hobby. She has something she's really working on, something that she's passionate about, and she's careful about, and she works hard. And on top of it just being a hobby, it produces good things. It produces food. It produces a form of exercise for her. It's like being outside with some vitamin D and some sunlight to just like reset her soul and come closer to Christ through nature. Like, if you can find a hobby that is just like hits all of the different things, that's a good place to be. So, what is a good hobby for you? In verse 17, it says, "She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms." This woman in Proverbs 31 exercises. She knows that keeping a home, raising children, supporting a husband, it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy and a lot of endurance. In order to keep up with all of that, you really have to take care of yourself. Through exercise, through eating well, and through just taking care of your health and your mind and some self-care. So, don't just take a bubble bath, even though that's a great thing. Don't just paint your nails or spend an hour reading. All of those things are really wonderful things, although I don't paint my nails. Take some time to really make sure your body is getting what it needs. Move some every day. Eat good food every day. Don't just eat processed boxed things. We all know that we need fruits and vegetables and whole grains and some kind of protein. So, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Verse 18, "She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night." This woman produces really quality things, and she produces it consistently. Whether you are working outside the home, you're working inside the home, or you're a full-time homemaker, it really doesn't matter. Make sure what you're doing is quality, that it's good stuff, that you're not just skipping corners and taking shortcuts. Do good work and do it consistently. So, what do you need to change to make your work have a higher quality? In verse 19 of Proverbs 31, it says, "She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff." So, a Proverbs 31 woman can create and mend clothes. I think this is kind of crucial because we don't want to be wasteful. We want to be smart with the things that we buy, and maybe it's not just clothes, it could be anything. Don't just throw it out at the first sign of a problem. If we can learn how to fix simple things, that's a really good thing. So, what in your home needs fixing today? And how can you plan that into your day? In verse 20, it states, "She stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy." This woman is kind. She's tender-hearted. She helps people. I don't think all of us need to go out and feed the homeless. While that's a really wonderful thing, there aren't enough for all of us to be doing that all of the time. So, how can we help the people who are poor financially, the people who are poor in heart and spirit, who are downtrodden, or the people who are poor in health, or, there's a lot of different ways to be poor, just not happy, I don't know. How can we serve other people? There's a lot of need in this world, and if you find anything, just go for it, just help, and that will be a wonderful thing. So, how can you serve people today? In verse 21, this Proverbs 31 woman is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. This woman is a thinker. She really thinks about the future, and she plans for it, she prepares for it, and she helps her family to be ready for emergencies. Whether that's a house fire, or here in Utah, there's a good chance of an earthquake, or, maybe in other places you have tsunamis, or hurricanes, or tornadoes. There's all kinds of things that you need to prepare for. Maybe your husband loses his job and you have to live without a paycheck for a little while. How are you going to do that? How are you going to prepare your family for difficult things? Verse 22 says, "She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple." I like this because a Proverbs 31 woman is dignified in her clothing. She really takes care to present herself in the best way possible. This Proverbs 31 woman is intentional about her clothing choices, and she's dignified in the way that she dresses. She's very intentional about the way she uses her body and the way she wants to express herself to other people. And she makes sure that her clothes and her hair and her makeup and everything expresses the things that she wants to. She's not willy-nilly about her clothes. She's very purposeful. So, how can you be more purposeful with your clothing? In verse 23, it says, "Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land." This reminded me of another scripture in Proverbs. It's Proverbs 12, verse 4. It says, "A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is a rottenness in his bones." So, a Proverbs 31 woman is respected. She is dignified. She is a woman of the community that people look up to. You don't have to be perfect, for sure, but you do have to be kind. You do have to be involved. You do have to be caring and help other people out. So, what can you do today to make your husband proud of you? In verse 24, it states, "She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant." While not all of us have a full-time job, we can do things to increase the income of our home. Whether that is find a creative way to make money or be very wise in the way we spend money. It's okay. So, we can go outside the home and work full-time or part-time. We can work full-time or part-time in the home, or we can be a stay-at-home mom, and that's good too. But if we are wise in the way we spend money, that's good. Save a penny, earn a penny, it's all good. What can you do to save a little bit of money? Verse 25, "Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come." This woman is joyful, and she is self-confident. When we have confidence in ourselves, that just increases the joy we have in the world. And when we put God first, when we see ourselves through His eyes, and even if we see ourselves through the eyes of the people who really care for us, it can change the way we see ourselves. I really, really appreciate that my husband tells me he is attracted to me all of the time. Sometimes I have some self-confidence issues with the way that I look, but he's so good, and remembering that he likes the way that I look makes me feel better. Imagine if I could remember that God made me this way. He really likes the way that I look. He was very purposeful about the way that I look, and that could really boost someone's self-confidence. So how can you see yourself through God's eyes better today? In verse 26, it says, "She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness." This woman is very purposeful with the words that she uses. She chooses words that don't just mean things to her, but mean things to other people. So if you think about the way people communicate, it can be really confusing. And we just need to keep that in mind and do our best to communicate in a way that everybody can understand. And if you can keep that in your mind, and that's just a good thing. So, how does your speech need to change? In verse 27, it states, "She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness." So this woman knows what her house needs and what her house is running out of, and she's just kind of on top of everything. I like to do this by keeping a list of the things that we constantly use in our home. Things like shampoos, conditioners, ketchup, over-the-counter meds, and when we're getting close to running out, I make a check or make some kind of note that reminds me to pick it up at the store the next time I go. And that way we never run out of the things that we need a lot. So what in your home needs to be replaced soon? And verse 28 says, "Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her." This woman is a really good mother and a wonderful wife. So that's kind of daunting. Being a wife and being a mother are big tasks, and they're kind of scary. When I think of parenting my 3-month-old, I am just like a little bit overwhelmed. But We're not alone. God is with us. My baby is his baby, and he really cares how I raise her. So I can always go to him and ask him for help, and he is more than happy to show me what I need to do. But that also means that I need to take the time to learn about different parenting styles. I need to take the time to learn about child development and what my baby needs and how to give it to her so that I can receive good revelation. Good education leads to good revelation, and I really like that, because when we learn things, then we're able to know what's out there, and God can kind of point us to what we need to be doing. So how can you be a better wife and a better mother? In verse 29 it says, "Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all." This is a little bit daunting. This verse says that this woman is better than all of the other women. And that's a little bit scary. But I don't think we need to be the perfect woman to be a Proverbs 31 woman. Definitely not this woman, I'm sure was not perfect. But we do need to do our best. And while giving ourselves grace is important, and being kind to ourselves and patient and looking back and seeing improvement, verse 30 of Proverbs 31 says, "Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised." A Proverbs 31 woman knows that God comes first. And when we put God first, everything else falls in line behind it. So how can you put God first in your day today? Verse 31 says, "Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates." A Proverbs 31 woman does a lot of work. Therefore, she will have a lot to show for her work. She does so much for the people around her. A lot of service, a lot of good, and just kind of makes the world work. Because of that, the fruit of her labors are always good, and they just like shine and they speak for her. She doesn't have to say, "I'm a hard worker," because all of the things she works on just say that for her, and that's kind of amazing. So how can you rejoice today in the accomplishments that you have made? I know that this list is extensive, and there's like 22 verses that we went over today that just talk a lot about things that maybe we're not all doing, things that we have difficulties working on, places that we can get better in. And sometimes that's really daunting. But you know what? That's okay, because all we need to do is put God first and work on one thing at a time. And it's really as easy as that, so we don't have to worry too hard. So I challenge you today to pick one thing from Proverbs 31 verses 10 through 31 to work on, and to become a better woman yourself. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.